So we've arrived at the end of the Tango year 2022. And for me, this has been a year of turning back to normal. So we've seen 2 years before that of, well, certain difficulties, which I'm not going to repeat. But this year has seen mostly, the recovery of the tango scene in all kinds of ways. So while in 2020 and 2021, the tango community was obviously still active in some ways, it was very much limited. And I think this year we've seen mostly the reestablishment of the conditions we were used to before. Um, what I've mostly seen is, for example, recovery of the milonga scene here in the Netherlands, but also worldwide events, the return of the encuentros, also, which was a bit earlier because of the changing of seasons. Because now in Argentina it's summer, so in their summer it was our winter. So they started earlier with milongas than most people in Europe. But even in Buenos Aires, also the events resumed as usual, the local milongas. And we have seen a lot of marathons, encuentros, milonguero this year. And I think things are fortunately pretty normal again, even though, yeah, some people might have a hard time still going to some places where it's very crowded. I don't know, but we've seen, mostly a reconciliation also of some people with different conflicting opinions, so to say. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm just really happy that people have come back together to enjoy this dance the way it's supposed to. And of course, there's been quite some damage from these years of abnormality, but I'm still very positive about what I see around me. However, there is a problem though. I've also seen some signals that it's also been a difficult restart for many, especially for teachers or some organizers, especially for teachers probably, but also for organizers, because I've personally witnessed some salons, some milongas this year. I don't really dance much, but the times I went, I kind of expected more people to come and they didn't. And that might be for several reasons. It might have nothing to do with this recovery we've seen this year of tango. But it might be influenced, like the amount of people coming, because like we've kind of lost the habit in a way, and some people went on to do other activities. And that's pretty much my point about teaching, because one of the problems of all the lockdowns and whatever happened is that teachers lost their students. And some people, like I said, they went on to do other things. They discovered other hobbies and they didn't come back. And usually, naturally, we have this huge crowd of people who still go and do their thing in tango anyway, because they were used to tango. They were diehard dancers, so they'll keep dancing whenever they can. There's also, especially for teachers, a big group of people who are kind of into tango or just taking lessons and never going to milongas. And from what I've heard, at least here in the Netherlands, a lot of those people have disappeared. So they went on to go to do other things. And it's been really hard for teachers to restart their business. So I want to talk about that in a separate video at some point, but I might as well just mention it now. I've heard some cases of teachers who quit teaching here in my country, and probably also abroad, because before they were living off this and they had a full income. Like some people do it as a hobby, other people do it part-time, some people do it full-time, but there are even people who were doing this full-time and who had great financial success, and they had to quit now because they just don't have enough students, or it's not easy to manage. And that brings me to another thing that might be quite tough for everyone, is that we're living in times that are getting increasingly expensive because of inflation and other issues. And it's getting harder to finance a relatively expensive hobby as tango. And I think that's especially a problem for teachers, because there are people who are not the real like diehards, and they might have to start saving money like cutting expenses, I mean, and things like tango or like their hobbies. So things like that might be the first to go. So it's also difficult for these teachers to reestablish themselves in their business because they've had 2 very difficult years, but now there are additional difficulties that stand in the way of them gaining a respectable income from what they are trying to do. So for me, it feels like a bit of a I don't know if double-edged sword is the right expression here, but um, there's like a lot of positive things, but there are also negative things, and I want to highlight them because I don't know if anyone's really talking about this, but it's a tough time. For example, for teachers, also probably for organizers, and even maybe for people who just want to go dance and might not have enough money. I think there's a relatively big amount of wealthy, well-earning people in Tango. But yeah, it's inflation hurts everyone. So let's just hope that the next year will bring some relief in this. And I really hope that, yeah, teachers who were previously doing well, I hope that they can recover their business. Some people I've heard are just went to do something else, and that's also fine. But for the general health of Tango, it's still important to get new people in or to make existing people better. So teachers are really important, and I wish them the best, and I hope for their the recovery in 2023. So about me personally, for me, it's mostly been a very positive year in Tango. I expanded a lot of my things, a lot of my um, activities. So I've personally come back from like a 4-year lockdown of illness. So it's been a bit longer for me than some other people. And I gradually recovered my health, and that also has enabled me to gradually expand what I do with Tango, because I kind of lost the interest in Tango because of depression. But by recovering myself, I felt there was new space for the things I were doing previously that I was passionate about previously, because I ended up getting other interests and doing other stuff, and that also helped, like a lot of physical activity that also helped gaining back this enthusiasm for Tango. So that's what this year has mostly been about for me. It's like an intensification of what I was already trying to do, like trying to return and trying to yeah, create content for people to enjoy. And yeah, I'm gonna talk about everything I've accomplished this year. But I first want to mention that it's also been a tough year in one way for us as dancing is concerned, because in June I went to Munich, southern Germany, and I really had a really hard time there as a dancer, which was kind of unexpected. But I also gave me opportunities to grow and to fix some technique problems, basic things that had to be fixed. I'll mention that. I'll talk about this in a previous in a separate video. But yeah, it's been a tough year in that sense that I kind of felt like I had to reinvent myself as a dancer. But that's also something that's been going on for years because I fell ill and I couldn't dance anymore, and then I had to slowly rediscover it. So it's kind of part of the same thing. So I'm not particularly sad about it, but yeah, sometimes in the moment it can be tough. And now let's talk about the personal things that I think are really interesting, like the highlights of this year. Um, so first of all, the interviews. This year, I've been doing 26 interviews, which is more than twice the amount I did the year before, which was also the year I started, 2021. I started in April, so it's not a full year. But yeah, I had a kind of an intensified amount of interviews that I did, which is also a sign that I'm recovering my interest in Tango. So I did a lot with that, and I had some great guests this year. And you know, I could mention everyone I've interviewed, of course, but let's just talk about some general themes. So I did some interviews specifically about DJing because I wanted to deepen my understanding and offer people perspectives of how DJs think and what they do and how they justify what they do, like their ideology behind it. So I've done that several times. I've also talked about teaching, which is something I particularly enjoy as well. I'm not a teacher myself, and I really want to understand also what teaching is about. And I also want people to see everything that goes into like being a good teacher. And it's a lot of work, and it's easy that you can just go there and take a lesson, but they have to do all this work behind it, and it's such a it's like it's a huge task to create all this repertoire in a way, or this curriculum. Um, I've also done a few interviews about Buenos Aires and one in Spanish, and yes, I really liked um, the interview I did with Norma and Johnny, who are organizers in Buenos Aires, because I've never done anything like that before. And yes, next year I will also try to interview some more people from Buenos Aires in Spanish. I'll make subtitles, and if possible in English, of course. But if it's in Spanish, I'll add subtitles for everyone to understand. And yes, I think finding these different perspectives and learning from them is really interesting. And also, I had several instances this year of people who were tango pioneers, so who started a community. And I had someone, for example, from Italy who did that 30 years ago, but I also had someone from India who did that 12 to 10 years ago until now. This kind of the same process, but in different time periods. And what I also find very interesting, which is my goal, is like I interviewed some famous people like Augusto Balisano, but I also interviewed some people who are not necessarily famous. And I just find that they all have their own stories to tell in a great way. And yes, that's something I'll keep on doing. So last thing is I'm going to, what I also wanted to say is I've started doing some making more videos in general, not the interviews, but some like vlog style things about topics that I find interesting or about the music. And the last point I want to make is that there's much more to come. So I'll be doing more interviews, of course. So I've done 38, 39 by now. But I'll also create other things, like recently posted a translation video with subtitles. I'll post more of those. I'll be posting more informal vlogs, random thoughts about tango. There's so much to come. So I hope you'll also written blogs. I also like writing about tango music, so also resume doing that. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I wish you the best for this year, both in terms of your personal life as in tango. Yes, let's keep it up together. And yes, let's just remember that even though sometimes these disasters happen in life, when the tango scene just gets completely wrecked in a way, but never forget that this is the same thing that happened to tango after its golden age. Like tango, it declined and it disappeared, and then there were foreigners who took it to Europe, and then it it was reborn, and now in some ways it's stronger than ever. So whatever happens, I think we can always deal with it, and we will only grow stronger from it eventually. So have a nice new year.